Hi guys, how are you today? Ready for new stories Ask a Lawyer prepared for you? Today I have 3. Let's go to the first one, about OP's best friend who is fuming because OP is raising his kid. Interesting, isn't it? It is a long one, so listen till the end to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't be shy to leave a comment. We all went to the same high school together. Me, 28 male, my ex-best friend Jason, and Isla. Jason and Isla got together right after we all graduated, and they were in a relationship for over a year. But when Isla got pregnant, he ended things between them, kicked her out of their apartment, and said he wasn't paying any child support. Isla was depressed throughout the whole pregnancy over the breakup and the fact that she would be a single mom. But her family's pretty wealthy, so she wasn't going to bother him for help if he didn't want to. It pissed me off the way he was treating her, and I kept asking him why he was being like that. Basically, he was just mad at her for getting pregnant, even though he refused to ever wear protection, according to him. When her being on the pill should be enough, and that was her job if she didn't want kids. He was being a real a-hole about this whole thing and saying he secretly hoped she miscarried so he wouldn't have to deal with some kid knocking on his door in 18 years asking to be his dad. He moved cities before Isla gave birth without telling anyone except me, and I didn't bother to keep contact. Isla gave birth to Isaac a month later. All of our friends and her family were there to support her except Jason. Nobody heard from him after that. I wasn't really around Isaac after he was born because I was working full-time and going to school, but still kept in touch with Isla to see how she was doing. I was raised by a single mom myself, so I knew it was a struggle, even with her family helping out. Little by little, I started spending more time with Isaac and buying him stuff. There were times when Isla would have a work emergency and asked me if I would watch him for a bit instead of calling a babysitter, and I was always happy to help out. When Isaac got older, I started doing more stuff like picking him up from school or going to his games, watching school performances, taking care of him at my place until Isla got off from work. I don't know, things just progressed without really realizing it. I love Isaac, like he's my own, and he's told me many times he loves me too. Around 2 years ago, Isla and I realized we were developing feelings for each other too, so we decided to go out on a date and have been together ever since. We didn't tell Isaac until we were together 10 months and felt like we wanted to be serious. It didn't change anything since I was already pretty involved in both their lives, and he was happy that meant we got to spend even more time together when we all moved into a bigger apartment together 5 months after that. Isaac is now 8 years old, and a few months ago, out of the blue, Isla was contacted by Jason. She was pissed by the call too because he was actually angry at her. So one of Jason's aunt's kids also goes to Isaac's school, but are in different grades. We had no idea about that until we ran into her once back in January when we were dropping him off at school. She recognized me and we said hello. We only chatted for a bit. She assumed Isaac was my son and neither of us corrected her because it felt awkward explaining that this is the child her nephew abandoned. So we left it at that, and I guess word got to Jason, and since he knew Isaac's name, it wasn't hard to figure out that I was involved in his son's life. He apparently stalked our Facebook pages and found all our family pics and stuff. For whatever reason, the fact that we were together and that I was the one taking care of his son pissed him off. He called her trash, not the actual word he used, but you get the idea, for picking his own best friend to take care of his kid as a way to get back at him. And then he later started giving me crap for breaking the bro code or whatever, saying stuff for swooping in and stealing his girl and his kid. It was so stupid, and I was honestly embarrassed at the fact that this guy used to be my best friend. I told him he could have been involved in his son's life if he had wanted to, and it's not my fault he feels the way he does. His behavior was seriously out of control, and we had to block his number and his social media accounts. For 3 months, we didn't hear anything from him again and thought he was done. But a few days ago, Isla got a call from an unknown number, and it was Jason. He told her he's going to a lawyer and is going to try to fight for custody of Isaac, since she was willing to spite him, and he wants to show her he can be petty too. Neither of us know what exactly his endgame is here, and I don't think he does either. He just wants to be an a-hole because for whatever reason, me being involved in his son's life pisses him off. The same son he didn't want to be involved with. It's all really confusing. Isla's worried because his dad does know some really good attorneys, and we're both just worried for Isaac and how this is going to affect him. He knows he has a dad and that he just wasn't ready to be a parent, so that's why he's not around. But he's never met Jason before in his life, and with the way he's acting now, neither of us want him anywhere near Isaac. We're just really lost and not sure what we're up against here. It's hard not to worry about if he'll actually go through with this or not. I think they should get a lawyer as soon as possible. Bio Dad vanished without taking responsibility for his child, financially or physically. I'm sure that's going to play a big role for a judge in the court. Also, OP and Isla have all Jason's messages where he admits what his real intentions are, which is more like revenge and definitely not wanting to be a dad for the child. OP and Isla have been in Kid's life for years. He enjoys a stable family environment. Sure, Bio Dad has a right to a relationship with the kid, but only if it's in the best interest of the child. Bio Dad may be entitled to a limited relationship, but full custody is pretty unlikely. Let's go to the second story about a crazy aunt who thinks it's okay to just dump a baby at relatives and leave. It's a long one, so listen till the end because there is an update and, of course, my insights. Let me just get it out there. I don't like kids. It may sound rude, but I just can't stand them. Sure, if the kid's a silent kid, I can handle them. But if the kid's as annoying and menacing as my little cousin here, I'm sorry, that's just not my cup of tea. Here's a little background of my relationship with my uncle. So my uncle, who is about 12 years older than me, has been like a big brother to me while growing up. We used to hang out all the time, play games. We did pretty much what siblings would do. But all that stopped when he got married, and that was bound to happen. The place for bachelors soon became the house of the devil. My aunt is a very manipulative woman. I still used to stop by their house once or twice a month after they were married to play games with my uncle. My aunt, however, didn't like it, and she probably asked him to stop having these gaming nights because after 2 or 3 months of their marriage, I used to call my uncle to ask if I can stop by. He'd make a rather lame excuse, and honestly, I knew that my aunt was behind this. So I took the hint and stopped hanging out at his place. My aunt basically made my uncle a stranger to our family. After a while, he got pretty distant. We'd see each other at family gatherings once or twice a year and would barely talk. All that changed when my aunt got pregnant. She snuck her way into our family, who she never bothered to call or acknowledge, and started acting all sweet and nice because she wanted people to pamper her and take care of her. And when my cousin was born, she'd drop him off at our place to take care of him while she went to work. My mom and dad had to take leaves alternatively just to take care of him, as he was a very loud and active and would often crawl away from his crib. Basically, my aunt made us all her servants. At the end of the day, when she used to come pick him up, she'd act all arrogant, as if she paid us to take care of him, and we did a bad job. My mom got a warning from work that she can't take any more WFH leaves. So she asked my aunt to stop dropping her son off, as we can't take care of him anymore, and he was a little grown by that time. My mom loved him to death, but hated my aunt more than she loved him. So naturally, my aunt cut us off again until she had further use for us. 2 years later, i.e. this year's beginning, he's 5 now, she continued dropping him once or twice a week at my parents'. I moved out now. My mom used to complain how annoying and violent he got. He's disobedient, aggressive, breaks stuff when he's angry. Basically, he's spoiled. He can't stand staying at my parents'. So I asked my mom to stop taking orders from that bee. Yes, I called her a bee. And ask her to leave you both alone. So my mom did that, albeit a little politely. So she stopped. And then boom, the pandemic happened. No contact for a few months. Phew. But oh no, the worst was yet to come. So here I am working my butt off, completing some files that I have to give to my manager by 6 p.m. And then suddenly my aunt shows up, unannounced, says she has to be somewhere urgently, no time to explain, drops her son and didn't even listen to me for a second and just left. I screamed my lungs out, calling her as she went down the stairs. Couldn't leave my cousin alone, so I couldn't chase her, and I didn't have her number. So I tried calling my uncle, and he seemed pretty angry at her. He said he's at work, but he'll come as soon as possible. So as I have no knowledge how to take care of a child, I gave him my iPad to play games, and he obviously broke it. And then I didn't mind him much. He was enjoying himself running around my living room playing with the beanbags. But then he discovered my bedroom and started messing around with my workout equipment. I kept asking him not to go into my bedroom, even scolded him. He still wouldn't listen. He kept going in there until I threw something on the floor and yelled at him to scare him so that he'd stay put and play with the beanbags. So he continued for a while, and then my coworker noticed through our Zoom call that he went into my room again. So I went in all angry to see him crying on the floor with a little bump on his forehead. I asked him if he was all right and what happened. He would hit me instead of talking, so I brought some ice and applied it to his forehead. He still resisted and started crying louder. Then, after tending to him for a while, he said he was running towards my bench press and hit his head on the bar and fell down. My manager saw what was happening and asked me to call child services and report this to them. But then I thought if I did, my poor uncle would get caught up in this BS, and I didn't want that. So a few minutes later, my aunt shows up and naturally started yelling at me like I'm the damn babysitter. Even my coworkers and manager joined in and started bashing her for leaving a child alone with me, to which she said, "This doesn't concern you. This is a family matter." I was like, wow. I kept enduring her anger, and then after a few minutes, my manager asked her to take the child to a doctor instead of arguing. Then she left, and I got back to my work. We all completed the work on time, thankfully. Later that night, she called up my relatives and complained about me that I hurt him on purpose because he broke my iPad, and then I kept getting calls from all the older relatives as to why I would commit such a horrendous crime. My parents and some other relatives obviously didn't believe her, and neither did my uncle, but my older relatives did. They still had the balls to ask my uncle to take legal action against me, and if he doesn't, she will. At this point, my reputation in the family has fallen. The elders in the family won't talk to my parents. She ripped apart our little family by taking away my uncle, and I might have a court case against me by tomorrow. I don't know anything about the law or how any of it works. What can I possibly do to fix all this? In my opinion, guys, OP made a big mistake not calling police immediately to report abandoned child. Also, OP's uncle wouldn't be blamed for the aunt leaving the kid. OP should do nothing at the moment, and if she gets served papers, then should immediately get a lawyer. The good thing is that OP has her colleague's testimony and the fact that the kid was literally dumped. She has more to lose by going to court than OP does. I think OP should not open the door to her next time. And OP's uncle is an idiot, living with such an evil woman. Update. So after the cool down, my parents decided to pick me up from my place and took me to a restaurant where we had a nice family meal. And then to my surprise, we went to my uncle's place, where we confronted my aunt. And she was already being bashed by my uncle and a lawyer friend of his. The moment I entered their house, my uncle asked me if I'm okay, and he kept apologizing until he broke down and started crying. This wasn't the first time she did this. She apparently drops her son off at her friend's or her sister's and goes off to meet her so-called friend, which we all suspected has to do something with her cheating on my uncle, because he had his suspicions from the beginning. She quit her job a few years after her son was born because of some argument she had with her boss, and then there was this guy from work she went to talk to about getting a new job, and after that, she had been hanging out with him a lot and dropping off her son anywhere she'd like. So now the ball's in our court, and she's the one who is in for some trouble, as my uncle's filing for a divorce, and that's the reason his lawyer friend was there. The lawyer said that given the fact that she abandoned her child multiple times, the custody would go to my uncle, to which she started crying and kept asking for forgiveness. And then my uncle asked her to tell us where she was if she wants our forgiveness. Then she started yelling and crying even more, about how life has been tough on her and stuff. What's the expression? Crocodile tears. Yeah, that. To which my mom popped her bubble by finally being rude to her and letting it all out. After that, she had like a mental breakdown and locked herself in the bedroom. So my dad pushed the door down and we saw her packing her bags. Then she started screaming, asking us to leave her alone, and started abusing. And at this point, she was completely unhinged. The neighbors even called the police. A few minutes later, they showed up and gave her a warning, and then she was being a Karen, so they advised her to calm down or this was going to go real bad for her. Then the lawyer talked to the policeman, and they left, and then we decided to stay the night in case she tries to run away. And she didn't. The next day, morning, They both went to the court, I guess, and my parents took my cousin back to their place and dropped me off at mine. So that's that. Finally, Uncle came back to his senses. I think Uncle should get a DNA test for the kid. What do you think, guys? I came out to my dad when I was 19, and he seemed very supportive and accepting, but his wife was cruel. She constantly pushes down with my esteem, blamed me for everything, yells at me for the slightest things, and pushes me until I couldn't handle it anymore. I struggle with depression and anxiety because of this. Things only got worse when I came out, and she found out. Why Dad chose to stay with her is something I won't ever understand. Luckily, I was living independently from them when I was in school. After this, Dad would come to see me, and I enjoyed our time together. He understood why I don't want to be around her, and this legitimized my reason. My fiancé, 38 male, and I have been together for 6 years and been living together for 3. We've arranged having a very big wedding, and I'm honestly counting down the days. There wasn't any question about whether or not she was invited. I had to speak to my dad face to face and explain my reasons to why his name was only on the invitation. Thankfully, he understood. That being said, my mom is also remarried, and I love my stepdad to death. Me and him have a wonderful relationship. I remember when I first introduced my fiancé to my dad and stepdad. They both essentially gave him the treat him well or else speech. I consider him to be my second dad. No one in my dad's family can stand his wife and her kids, so no one would be mad if she didn't come. They're actually grateful. At first, my dad was pretty understanding, but as of late, he's been trying to get me to change my mind. He's been saying that he wants us to be able to put our differences behind us and work to developing a relationship like my stepdad and I have. I'm a very straight-up and to-the-point type of person. I don't beat around the bush, and I told him, my wedding day is about celebrating me and my fiancé, and I only want people there who actually respect me, and in turn, I respect present. I wish to celebrate the biggest day of my life with those that actually love and wish me happiness. It's my personal belief that respect must be earned. She hasn't done anything to earn my respect. Then he tries to pull the whole, if my wife doesn't come, then I won't card. And I told him if that's his decision, then there's nothing I can do. But this would have a negative impact on our relationship, and he would be to blame. He apologized for even bringing it up and dropped it. Lately, he's been dropping hints again, that he'd wish I would invite her, but I'm not backing down. We're paying for everything. His parents and mine are just showing up, so I believe the final say is mine, and I refuse to be around her and step-sibling, who are also terrible. What do you think I should do? What would you do? Thanks. I think if OP doesn't want to invite her, he shouldn't. And it's his dad's choice to come to the wedding or not. Weddings should be celebrated with people who support your relationship.